Our special guest today is RJ Daley. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in the horror genre.
Well, my name's RJ Daley. I'm a relatively new author to the genre. And I've been enjoying writing stories that lean towards the more extreme and splatterpunk side of the genre. How I got started? Well, I started watching a podcast a couple of years back called Written in Red with Aaron Beauregard, Daniel Volpe, Carver Pike, and Roland Bursey Jr. Before that, I'd been toying with the idea of writing, but I suppose from after watching that and having a discussion with a few like-minded individuals within the community, it really started from there.
Yeah. So you said you sort of like going towards the extreme side. What's the pull for that?
I kind of got into more extreme horror maybe about 4 or 5 years back as a reader. And I suppose one of the draws was it's limitless. You know, you can really push the boundaries on that. And it's exciting. I find that, reading about the taboos of society and maybe the things that we shouldn't mention or shouldn't delve into and maybe explore those and push those a little more. I find that very appealing as a reader and now as a writer as well.
Yeah. So how did you come up with your ideas?
I do listen to a lot of true crime podcasts. So I find those pretty useful for the grimier side of society and the underbelly of what people are actually capable of and what actually goes on, possibly under our noses that we behind closed doors that we mightn't see or maybe choose to ignore, so to speak, in certain points. But often too, you could be mopping the floor, having a shower, doing something mundane, and an idea pops into your head. I'm also a big people watcher. I like to watch what's going on around me and draw inspiration just from everyday events.
Yeah. So when you've got an idea, are you a plotter or a pantser?
The last story I've just finished writing started out as a short story and it ended up at about 40,000 words.
Yeah.
I didn't plot that one. And in doing so, I found I spent a lot of time toing and froing, going back, changing my mind as the story evolved, having to flip back and change various parts and different scenes to amend that to make it fit in. My debut release, Run Red, I plotted pretty heavily. And I found in doing so, you can nearly paint yourself into a corner in doing that. So moving forward, I will definitely have an outline of some kind, a scene list, maybe a bit of an idea of the characters, what they're like, their personalities, etc. But I definitely wouldn't be comfortable going into something completely blind and just starting on a blank page and seeing what comes out at the other end.
So you're a bit of both.
A bit of both, definitely.
Yeah. And how do you create your characters?
As I said, from listening to podcasts and again from maybe even just from watching movies, reading other books, from the initial idea or the concept that you have of a story, you'll obviously want certain individuals in there that will behave in a certain manner to drive things forward. From that, you will build, or I tend to build that particular character's personality. And I find as the story evolves and the characters start to interact more with each other, the personality of that character will develop more as the story unfolds within my mind anyway.
Yeah. So what do you think makes a perfect antagonist?
I suppose it depends upon the style of the story too, the genre of the story. And pretty much what I've been writing so far, you've got to have somebody that's completely despicable to carry out the acts that I've written about. But also, particularly in Run Red, we've got an individual within that who is very nasty on one side, but on the flip side of that, you could see maybe more softer side to him at times as well. Regrets in there, those human emotions. So depending on what you're writing, really, if you want to write something that's completely filthy and abhorrent, you've got to come up with someone that fits that bill. On the other side of that, you may have someone who's done something and regrets it.
Yeah, you've got to have someone relatable, haven't you?
Yeah, yeah,
The guy
definitely.
next door.
Exactly. That's what I say. From people watching, from looking around, your interactions at work or with every day in the supermarket, the general public, listening to conversations and eavesdropping and the queue at the till, you get a good idea of the various different ranges of people within the society and how they act and maybe how they interact with other people.
Yeah. So what do you think's the hardest thing about writing a horror book?
Oh, well, I'm pretty new to this, as I've said, and I find keeping things fresh as the story's moving forward, maybe not repeating yourself, coming up with different words for blood or guts, etc. That that you're not just spitting out the same descriptions all the time. That can be quite challenging. Other things I would find, pace is important. I tend to, what I've written so far has been on the shorter side. Run runs about 21K. My next release coming in about double that, just over 40K. So pacing, I find as well, you need to keep things moving forward, but not at a rate where it's like a machine gun, where you're just throwing that much stuff at the reader. You got to, after maybe a difficult scene or a nasty scene, you might want to give them a little breather. And it's just trying to incorporate those things through the story too, to make it flow well.
So how do you think like the pacing should go? Do you think there should be sort of like with short stories especially, do you think they should go straight into it and have a fast pace throughout?
It depends. I've read and enjoyed both of those styles of delivery. I have a story out in Sydney Shiv's fall equinox called Turn to Black, which is really, there's really just like two distinct halves to that story. The first half of the short story is kind of like a build up of the setting, the world that it's in. A bit of a backstory about the main character and the relationship she has with her parents. And then in the middle of that story, it just flips and really ramps up. And I find that work particularly well in that delivery. As you say, other short stories I've read, it just goes boom, it just goes straight into the action and doesn't stop. But I had to say, if it's engaging, I enjoy both.
Yeah. So I know you said you base some things around what you see and what you hear. Do you base any of them on your own experiences or your own fears?
Yes, in monstrous behavior, I have. My fears have evolved since I've gotten married and had kids. When I was younger and much more carefree, obviously you mightn't have worried about certain things and possibly thought they were mundane until you have kids of your own. When you have children, I think your priorities change and they kind of take over it. Now, as a parent, I kind of look at everything as a danger. You see them doing something they shouldn't do, get off it. You're going to fall off that. You worry about strangers, about other people. And those sorts of fears played into that story quite a bit.
Yeah, that's right. Your priorities do change, don't they? A lot.
A lot, yeah, very much so.
They don't, but they do. Okay, so do you ever feel sorry or any remorse for putting your readers through discomfort?
I enjoy reading and being made highly uncomfortable. There's nothing better than sitting reading a book with your toes curled up about what's going to happen or what is happening. And I think that's what the readers like. That's what they enjoy. That's one of the pulls of maybe the more extreme side of the genre, is being put in that position where you're maybe physically cringing, your face is screwed up, you just feel maybe your skin's crawling. Some people have actually said, I've read a couple of reviews, not for my work, but for other people's work, it says, oh, that scene, I actually threw up a little in my mouth, for example, So no, I don't particularly feel any remorse for that.
So what's been the most difficult scene that you've had to write?
Oh, there is. Well, that's a tough one. There are some scenes in monstrous behavior that were tough to write, involving a kid and his parents. And as I say, with having children of my own, the thought of any child having to endure or go through those sorts of things on a daily basis would be just absolutely horrific.
Yeah.
There's another particular scene in a piece that I have written, but needs to be edited quite a lot. It's kind of just thrown in there at the moment. I thought about taking it out, but at the same time, after rereading it and a bit of contemplation, I left it in there because it does lend itself to the story. I think as long as what you're writing, even if it is gross or violent, as long as it's not gratuitous for the sake of just being that way. If it lends itself to the story, drives things forward, then definitely leave it in there.
Yeah, I think that's the problem with some books, isn't it? That the scenes that are put in there are for shock value rather than
I would agree
to the story.
I would agree, yeah, and that's fine, and so some people enjoy that, and if that's what you want to write, 100% go with that. Me personally, as somebody reading it, if it has meaning to it, fine. I have no issue with it having, or no issue with it being in the story.
Yeah. So I know you've mentioned feedback. Have you had any memorable feedback yourself that's made an impact?
Yes, quite a lot. And I think feedback and reviews are very important for an author, not just to stroke your ego or to say how good you are, but how you can build upon things, how you could improve upon things, what people, obviously, if you're getting a good review, it's fantastic, it's great. And those good reviews often point out what you're doing well, what people enjoy, maybe highlight the trends of what people are enjoying at that particular time. One review that really sticks out for me is from a fantastic reader and reviewer, Karina Morse. Karina reads stacks of stuff, reads some great books. And for my debut release, Run Red, she turned around and said that it went into one of her top 10s of 2023 automatically, and that was fantastic. I felt great hearing that from a reviewer and a reader like Karina.
Yeah, she's doing a paper interview, and it's going into the Christmas magazine for us.
Excellent.
She's a really good reviewer.
Fantastic. And her page, No Remorse Reviews, the effort that she puts into the scene setups with the dolls and everything else, and the little props that she does, she goes way above and beyond. Fantastic stuff.
It is. So have you ever collaborated with other authors or artists?
Currently not at the moment. Myself and Sydney Shiv, who I'll be very good friends with, he does my editing as well as along with my cover art and cover designs, one-stop shop for everything. We had talked a while back about doing a collaboration in the future. Another couple of people just in general conversation have mentioned about doing the same, but I think personally I'd probably like to get another couple of releases, my own releases, individual releases out first before I would start to collaborate with anyone. And at the end of the day, I personally myself, I'm still finding my voice, my written voice, myself. So I suppose before I would really start to maybe go down that route, I'd like to maybe have that hammered home a little more.
Yeah. Fantastic. So what advice would you give to aspiring writers who want to break out into the horror genre?
I'm still aspiring myself. Sit down and write. And I know probably you hear this on so many interviews, so many podcasts, just sit down and write. And I suppose at the start, when I started writing, it was a little, maybe my schedule of writing was a little more sketchy, and you might have started to pick and choose as and when you sat down and, I don't feel like it today. And I suppose you really have to start, if you want to make some traction with it, you kind of have to start treating it like a job. I know, jobs aren't fun, so to speak, and people work to earn money. But what I kind of mean is, you got to set some time aside each day. And kind of be, I suppose, methodical about that. My writing time happens in the evening when the house is quiet, or not quiet, but quieter than it is during the day. Yeah. And it's just getting into the routine of getting your shower done, the kids into bed, pulling out the laptop, opening it, getting some words down. Some nights will be better than others, but anything that you stick down and consistently stick down throughout a week over the course of a month will mount up.
Yeah.
So that'd be one piece of advice. Another piece of advice I would say is take your time. there's no rush, there's no time limits. You know, you set your own schedule, you set your own boundaries for releases. Well, if you're self-publishing anyway, you know, and I think if you go on social media and you see everybody and somebody else has this book out, and next month they have another book out, and they've released two books the following month, you kind of start looking at that and thinking, you know, should I be just doing the same? Should I have the same sort of output of that? And everybody will work at their own individual pace and their own level of ability, so to speak, depending on how long they've been doing it. So I would say take your time and just do your own thing. Write what you enjoy. Write what you enjoy reading, and you know, if you stick at it and finish what you start. You know, it's very easy to start something and another idea pops up and say, oh, I'll jump into that, and then another one comes along and that's more appealing, so I'll jump into that. So just keep hammering away and chipping away at your project, and eventually it'll wrap up and it'll finish. And you know, and don't worry about your first draft. Your first draft, I read back some of my first drafts and you're like, what? You know, you can delete it, you can rewrite it, you can reword it, and let other people read your work, someone you trust, get their eyes on it. A fresh pair of eyes and a different insight can poke so many holes in the stuff that you've written, and you mightn't even realize it yourself, you know. So that's roughly kind of my bit of advice.
That's right. So have you got any exciting projects that you've got coming out?
No, as I've alluded to, my next release, Monstrous Behaviour, will either be out at the end of November or early December. I'm hoping to have it out before December, but we'll just see what happens with that. It is finished. I gave the final pass of the edits last night. So this afternoon, I will be emailing that back over to Sydney Shiv to get it formatted. He has a little bit more artwork to do for me. So yeah, that's coming together nicely. So that should be out relatively soon.
Fantastic. So lastly, where can listeners find your books?
All of my books are available in all formats on Amazon. You can DM me on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. I'm on all three of those platforms. If you'd like signed copies, moving forward, I would aspire hopefully to, when I've got a few more releases under my belt, to hopefully maybe set up some sort of website or web store or something like that. But for the moment, Amazon, you can get all my stuff on Amazon.
Fantastic. It's a lot, isn't it, as an author? I mean, most people think that we just sit down and write books, but it's not, is it? You've got to sit down and write books. You've got marketing. You've got all the social media.
Yeah, writing's only one part of it. Then you have your book and it's ready to go, and you go, okay, what do I do now? So then you've got to jump on your social media, kind of try and drum up a bit of interest, reply to people, you know, as you say, marketing the stuff. That there's just, it's multifaceted. It's huge. You know, you put on so many different hats.
Yeah, it's just like having so many full-time jobs all at once.
All at once. It's a big undertaking. And, you know, it's a passion at the end of the day, I believe. You know, but people wouldn't be doing this. I certainly wouldn't be doing it if, number one, I wasn't passionate about it, and number two, that I didn't really enjoy it because of the sheer volume of time it takes up.
Yeah.
You've got to be dedicated to and enjoy what you're doing.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for coming on the show. It's been brilliant having you on.
Thanks very much for having me. I really appreciate it, Crystal.
You're very welcome.